Namaste, viewers. Welcome to Jaipur Dialogue USA. And today I want to talk about, has Europe fallen? Uh, this is a very serious topic. I'll tell you why. And I'm going to talk in English today because I want to share this podcast, this particular telecast, with many people in the non-Hindi speaking area. So bear with me today. The reason why I say this, in my shows and other times, I have always been asking, why is the West bending backwards to accommodate refugees coming from Islamic world? And this is a question. It's an inquiry, by the way. It's not a challenging why they are doing it. I'm asking why they are doing it. It's very important because unless and until we know the why of it, answers don't come. So those of us who are aware of, some of us who are not, let's bear in mind, Europe has dominated the world politics for a long number of years through their tools of imperialism, colonialism, domination with religious prescription, language. Think about it. All over the world, all over the colonized world, wherever the colonial powers went, the language went with them. English, Dutch, French. These are all languages spoken in Africa, in Latin America, Spanish, or English in wherever these colonies went. One of the things that is very critical to understand, Europe has had a fetish, almost a fetish, their emotional urge and desire to do territorial adjustments within their own continent. They do that. And the consequence of these internal warfare has been their contribution to peace, ironically enough, in the name of 2 world wars. And those world wars became world wars because the colonial armies of India and other colonies went and fought the European war in the name of keeping world peace. That's why it is important to understand why the rest of the world is not participating in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. This is the background to that, because Europe participates and indulges in an emotional mumbo-jumbo of territorial adjustments in which they make it as a world scenario. By the way, the world food chain supply may have been affected, but nobody has died because of the Russia-Ukraine war. The tragedies of Ukraine war, sufferings of people, notwithstanding, it's a terrible tragedy, but I don't think Europe is still learning. Now comes the scenario why this particular thing is happening. There is a book. To my question, I began to research and try to find out why is the West bending backwards, and listen how the lessons of history is reaching Europe now. There is a book. I came across this book, Islamophilia. This is a book written by a famous journalist, Douglas Murray, and a British guy. Interestingly enough, this is the shortest book I've come across in my life. It is just 59 pages. Just 59 pages. And he addresses here the challenge of Islamophilia, where the West, the white people, are bending backwards to accommodate a faith who they hurt once upon a time. So Douglas Murray, thank you for writing this book. He exposes Hollywood and everything else. The important part here is that the colonization of Europe that has happened, particularly with Islamic group of people who have come from Algeria and other places, is a sign that Europe is succumbing to the pressures and manifestations of the rigidity of a belief system. It's not about hating or liking any particular religion. It's about disagreement with a religion of their practice. Disagreement, like and hate, they are three different words altogether. Just because I disagree with you doesn't mean I don't like you. But that is the way the language gets played out. That's important to remember. Europe has fallen to the trite of insistences made by people coming from various groups of people, primarily of Muslim and Islamic origin. What has happened here is very important to understand. This is something which is my conversation with somebody of a Muslim world who told me soon after 9/11, and I'm sharing this with you today. Those who have known me in the past, they know about this. They told me very clearly, and I'm repeating it. Jha Sahab, this is the beginning of our struggle. 9/11 is the beginning of our struggle, and I'm making this explosive statement. Is the beginning of our struggle because we want to use, abuse, utilize every single democratic facets that democracies are proud of. And we will subjugate you using your tools of governance to subdue you. That's what is happening. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do what you want to do, not guilty until proven. These are tools which are being used in the name of blasphemy and phobia. This is what is important. In the West, in democracies, freedom is the key. Freedom is the key. Freedom of speech, religion, even, you can abuse, you can burn your flag in America for that matter. Burning a flag in America is not anti-America. It's expression of frustration. Whereas in India, you can't burn flag. It's a national pride. It's the interpretation of law. It's the interpretation of culture that exists in a particular country. But what is important here to know is that there are some people who do not evolve or change. And Islamic world, unfortunately, is expanding itself on the basis of their prescription, a 1400-year-old prescription of domination of the world. They are using every single tool available to everybody else. So, if I don't agree, in the West, we are used to having a debate, dialogue, discussion, violent, not a violent one, but animated one, of course. But that's not allowed. You realize this? You cannot question. Anupur Sharma in India, because she quoted texts from the various Muslim texts, Arabic texts, about Islam, a fatwa was issued on her, a threat was issued on her to cut her throat. She is sitting in hiding. Whereas many people openly abuse India, democracy, Hindus, it's okay, because that's freedom. This is where the Western world is failing itself. By bending backwards, they are denying the very tenets of democracy that upholds our way of life. Coverage of the entire French tragedy that is happening and which is spreading all over Europe, is manifestation of that part. You burn my Quran, you go to hell. Charlie Hebdo paid a price with death because he drew the cartoon of Muhammad. Now, insulting any religion is not right. I'm not in that favor at all. Absolutely not. What I'm talking about is a respectful dialogue, a demand for reciprocity. I'm a Hindu. If anybody questions my belief, why do we do Murti Puja? Why do we pray to hundreds of gods? We have an explanation and reason. We are not only giving you explanation, we have a reasoning. There is justification. There is a scientific validation of that thought, which we know from thousands of years of our own Vedic history. We know that. It existed. It happened. Just because it is translated in different languages doesn't take away the original concept of that. This is what is important for us Indians to know, and the Western people who love democracy as a tool of governance. And the Western people ought to know that they used imperialism and colonialism to dominate and control the natives. This is also a fact. I'm reminded of a famous British foreign minister who was shown in a cartoon driven, whether it was in Punch magazine or whether it was Lakshman, R.K. Lakshman in India, who showed that he was looking through a binocular and he was saying, oh, the colonies that we dominated, they are coming back to us. That's what is happening in Europe. The colonies that they dominated is coming back to Europe. Bhaiyo or Behno, it is very important for us to understand that not being in agreement with a philosophy doesn't mean I don't like its people. What is important for us to have is the democratic tool of dialogue, debate, and discussion, demanding reciprocity. You can criticize my gods and the way I do things, but I have a right to explain. And consequently, I have a right to ask the question of your belief and of your systems. That is something which is very important to establish. What is happening in Europe is a battle. It's a jihad and a crusade. Jihad has been established in Europe. It's my way or highway. Laying down the ground rule. They are laying down the ground rule. You say anything about Islam and we will have your throat cut. Are we going to accept that? That's the question which the rest of the world must ask. And I'm 100% sure that many Arabs and Muslims do not agree with that ideology or the way of life. It is not that disagreement must cause hatred. No. Disagreements must lead to dialogues and debate. This is very critical. Europe has fallen as on date. It's to use the cricket analogy, they have lost 6 wickets, only 4 wickets remaining, and 100 runs to score. They are falling. Because look at the media coverage of the France struggle, French scenario, European scenario. They are trying to paint a picture that everything is okay. Same thing happening in India, they will go ballistic. So, ladies and gentlemen, Europe, in my opinion, seems to have slipped past. They have to contend with that issue. They have to either launch a crusade or fix what Mr. Farid Zakaria said, limited authoritarianism. No, it was not limited authority, limited liberalism, or restricted freedoms. The moment you do that, they win the argument that eventually Europe could not, and the democracies could not enforce their freedom. It was fake. The moment we challenged it, it fell. See the dilemma? But as the saying goes, different times, different tools. And we have to protect and defend our right to life and living. My concern is America falling? Here also, Madam Ilhan Omar has moved another House resolution which failed earlier on to talk about establishment of phobia as a serious instrument and monitoring of phobia all over the world in US embassies by people who are only Islamic or approved by them. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a serious issue. If you don't protect and defend our way of life will go where it then deserves to go. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, share our channel, and I want to thank Douglas Murray for explaining the concept of Islamophilia, a very metropolitan malady. Take care. See you again. Satyamev Jayate.